Hi, and welcome to the sixth masterclass of the 2022 to 2023 series with the MET Orchestra Musicians at Lessonface, today featuring Stephanie Mortimer. I'm Katie Falk-Flores here with Lessonface, where we connect students with great teachers for live lessons and classes. In this masterclass today, we'll be having 2 student performance and coaching sessions, followed by a brief Q&A at the end. So please enter questions in the chat box if you have them, and we will address them after the performances. And now Anna Christina Tangsung of Princeton, New Jersey will play Pan and the Birds from the Flute de Pan by Jules Mouquet. Anna, did you enable your sound again?
Oh, yeah, my bad.
Thank you.
I keep forgetting that.
Okay, bravo. Nice work. Um, so, first of all, have you do you know what the title of this movement means?
Um, I mean, in terms of like the literal translation of it, or
Hmm.
okay. Well, I have the English title of it, but I do
Oh,
know the
that's
original.
cheating.
I do know the original French title. Pan et la oiseau,
Yeah, les oiseaux.
les
So, can you
oiseaux.
tell everybody what it means?
Pan and the birds.
Right. So, you here are what do you think you're representing?
Um, Different types of birds.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, this can be really kind of free to, you don't have to stick with exact um, rhythms. It really needs to sound more like you're walking through the park and like a bird.
Mm.
So more, right? So it's a little freer. Also, if you can just practice it without the grace notes,
Hmm.
just play. Would you do that?
Hmm.
Yeah. So now when you add the grace notes, you're really hanging on to that C. This is all about C here, right? So it's not as choppy.
Hmm.
Can you get a little more? So play that C and imagine the sound is coming up through your nose. It's coming out your nose. So we're going to get more of a resonant quality. It's like vibrating in your nose. Now play it without the tongue. Just play ha, hoo. Right. And let it vibrate. Don't try to flatten the sound out.
Hmm.
Right. So like if you, for example, if you've ever seen like you ever seen a like a been in the hospital and seen someone on a respirator or you've seen it on TV, you know how like you can see the waves of the person's breathing. We want I want so you would never want to flatline.
Hmm.
That, that's never good in the hospital or in music. So you want to really emphasize this life in the sound, breath in the sound. Always vibrating, always ringing.
Oh wait.
Without the tongue. Without the tongue?
Hmm.
Yeah. And now, can you get, see, what I'm noticing, and I'm not sure if you tell me if you notice this too, but your sound is improved when you remove the tongue
Hmm.
and the attack of the note. So what does that tell me and you? It tells us,
It could potentially tell us that like when I'm like articulating, it could be like closing things up.
yeah, exactly. You're changing something. So your natural sound, which is quite lovely and ringing, is being squished somehow by the use of your tongue.
Hmm.
So can you try again, play one more time without the tongue, and then add the tongue and see if you can preserve that beauty in your sound? Yeah. Now, do you have some kind of tuning device there that plays a sound?
Um, let's see. My metronome does have a tuning thing.
This is not going to be ideal if it's on a metronome because it's gonna be like a well, you can do it. It's going to be kind of an ugly sound on the metronome, but um, but let's try it for now. Let's put it and it's what is your metronome? 440?
Yeah.
Okay. So probably that metronome doesn't have a lot of flexibility in terms of like if you want to adjust the pitch a little bit, but we'll stick with 440.
Mm-hmm.
So put it on a C.
Oh wait. Actually, another thing I could do is I could just have it play off my phone.
You have a tuner on your phone?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll have probably more flexibility. The tuner I use, there's many out there, but I use one called TE Tuner.
Hmm.
What do you have?
I was just gonna go to an online tuner, but I can get a
Okay.
TV tuner.
No, because you're gonna have to buy it and everything. It'll take a while.
Okay.
Um, just go to an online tuner. Generally, I like to use sine wave if because on these fancy online things, you can often select what kind of wave you want, or if you want it to be flute, clarinet, whatever. I choose sine wave because it's very pure sound,
Hmm.
and so you can put that on a C. Um, I'm going to change mine to be 440 too. Let's see. Because I have mine set on 442 for me. Because otherwise at work sometimes I can be flat if I don't set my tuner higher. Um, but I'm going to put it 440 since so we match. And I'm going to put it on this C. Actually, and I'm going to add one octave above. So, in fact, maybe you can even hear that, but it's probably going to be too distracting for the video. So, if you can put it on a C and play with it, yeah. Play the octave above. No tone. Right. Now, can you imagine that that tuner is not a tuner anymore, but that it's a person playing an instrument, and then you're playing duets now?
Hmm.
Oh, play with that person. Right, and allow the sound to vibrate. Beautiful. And so when you're practicing, I'm going to use another example. So let's go to the end of the piece
Hmm.
and set it on a G. Can you turn it up any higher? Great. And so can you play that section there at the meno vivo? It's like 4 lines from the end. Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. The one I meant was 1 bar after 11.
Okay.
Can I stop you here? Can can you again? Imagine you're playing with a human, and so you're really trying to. This is the pan part, right? You're trying to attract the birds or something, right? So one thing is, so first of all is just identifying where you are within the pitch, but secondly is how you're using your vibrato,
Hmm.
and you from what I'm hearing, you're vibrating actually down from the note. So if I were to slow your vibrato, if I were to take a recording of you and slow it down, I would hear it going, oh, like that, right? And if you want to have a more vibrant and singing sound, you need to either vibrate within the pitch or slightly above.
Hmm.
So And also let your lips be flexible. We don't have to try to clamp down on the sound. So just let it be flexible. Try put the G on again and then try really sing and try to vibrate up.
Do you have your original sound on? Because it's kind of hard to hear the vibrato within that.
Me? Okay. I have originals, so I have to, am I supposed to have it on or off?
On.
I'm hearing vibrato. Is that what we're looking for in Stephanie's sound? Are you not hearing it for Anna? Do you have your headphones?
I do, but it's kind of like it's choppy.
Oh, are you getting signal not clearly through?
Not really.
Okay. Oh gosh. Okay, let's see what we can do. So I do see from our other performer we may have some sound. Stephanie, you are on a wireless connection, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me try. I'm just gonna try something quickly on my side, but I think that, yeah, I don't think it's original sound. I think it's a connection thing based on the audio I'm getting.
Um, I could try my iPad. I would need a minute or so to get the charger and log back in and stuff.
Maybe change like the audio input to the inbuilt microphone instead of the wireless microphone, because usually wireless mics are kind of
I
like.
don't have, no, it's using the built-in. I mean,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Hmm.
I'm just, I wonder if, is the microphone audio settings? Let's see what it says. Um, is it like, no, it's not maxing out, is it?
No,
No.
it's just a little choppy.
Yeah, I think it is more of a signal thing, so I'm trying to see. What if you uncheck high fidelity music mode? I know normally I would want that on,
Okay.
but it may simply be it's too much signal and it's cutting out.
How's that?
Anna, was that okay for you? Because I'm still getting Stephanie clearly through with vibrato and all.
And Anna froze for a second too. What about Kitty? Are you hearing?
I am hearing both of you really well, so I'm in the optimal position.
Um, the only other thing that I can think of is I can try my iPad, but it's going to take me a moment. Unless it's, I am not sure if it's on Anna's side.
It might be on my side. It said that my internet connection was unstable, so.
I see. Okay, well, should I
Anna, do you have a way of doing a wired connection at all?
Uh, no, I'm going off my MacBook right now, so.
Okay, perfect. So I did hear from our other performer that turning off high fidelity, whatever you did, Stephanie, the other performer is getting vibrato through. So I think it's probably going to be a signal thing. Anna, is there anything you can close on your computer that you're not using right now?
Yeah.
but did Kitty say that it changed when I did that, or was it okay the whole time?
I was okay the whole time. Our other performer heard you better when you did that.
Okay. All right. So I've made that adjustment.
Hmm. Okay.
Can you
We
can
can
you
try.
okay,
Sorry, go ahead, Stephanie.
you can hear me talking though, right? That's not
Yep.
a problem. Okay. Um well, I guess without the demonstrating, it's a little harder, but let's just try to go with what I say instead of what I'm demonstrating. So if you put the G on and try to play into the sound as if you're playing with another person and try to just allow the vibrato to come. It seems to me that you're trying to control it and stop it from happening. And we want it really just let it go. Like be ridiculous about it for a second. This is French music, so you can really go for it. Good. Better, better. Yeah. And now what I'd like to hear is that all the notes vibrate. So um, it's a very flutistic thing to do to kind of choose, to kind of lean on some notes and not vibrate on some. And so we want to make sure that they're all vibrating. So even the first note, like not you won't be able to hear necessarily, but we want. So as if you're holding, like you're just holding a note and you're just moving your fingers. So not changing the pressure into the notes. So I hear a little bit that you're not starting the vibrato right away. That it's a little, right?
Mm-hmm.
So can it start so we don't go, there's like a pop singer thing where they like we don't we
Yeah.
don't we want like not straight tone and then vibrato, we want vibrato all the time. Beautiful. Yeah. That's much better. Much more singing. Um and it seemed like you had more air.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because when you're vibrating, the flute is working for you. If you don't vibrate, you're fighting against nature, really, because sound is vibration. That is like the very nature of what sound is. So we want to go with that and let it work for us. And your flute wants to vibrate. Like that's how it actually functions. That's how it makes sound. So we want to allow natural sound to happen. Um, and so the tongue. Um, I want to hear the tongue is not a percussion instrument, it's a valve. Okay, so I'm hearing a lot of extra tongue. So you play a wind instrument, and so everything needs to be driven by your air. And the tongue is only a helper. And that's why I had you do that exercise where you played only the first note and you did it without the tongue because I want to demonstrate to you that your tongue is not in charge. Um, your air is. And so everything is about the air. You add the tongue in as a helper. It's only there to help. Um, so, so this is without the tongue. And with, you shouldn't hear much difference.
Mm.
So that's what we're going for. Yeah, better. So it's really just, it's not so much emphasis on the tongue. Good. The the last note of the piece was very beautiful the way you played it this last time, and I really like how you're getting that nice crescendo, and you're actually your vibrato changed and grew throughout the note. So that was really beautiful, very natural sound. At the very, very end, want to make sure to keep listening to that colleague you have playing on the tuner, that we're really like keeping that pitch up. Um, and you can use your bottom lip to kind of help you keep it up there. So your lips are actually coming there's a taper inside your mouth, not here. So you're not biting out on the outside, you're kind of tapering on the inside. So it's going to look more like when you finish. Can you just try like the last note and see? Yeah, good. Yeah. Little brother. Yeah. And if we can get, you see how at the very end my lips come apart. So I'm kind of avoiding this kind of, right?
Yeah.
That's a thing at the end. A lot of flute players do to get that like, I call it the tea kettle. Um, so that's the more you can make the taper happen within your mouth on the inside of your lips instead of the outside, the more you can avoid that. And then when your lips come apart, the sound will stop.
Mhm.
We want to use the vibrato too to release the sound. So that's why when you're removing the vibrato at the end, the only option for you is tea kettle, right? Because now you're squeezing, squeezing, squeezing. If you keep the vibrato in the sound and you're letting your lips come away from each other, then you have flexibility. You can release, sorry about my dog. Shush. You can release the note with the up side of the vibrato, right? One more time. You got a little tea kettle, but it was more
Yeah.
it was more anecdotal, and it wasn't the high pitched tea kettle. It was just a little crack. I work on that. I think that will be great, and really play with this drone a lot.
Mm.
Um, find the tonic, like what. So we're in G minor here. So try to identify what key you're in, and then use that to play with that to make sure you're staying within the tonality and also that you're vibrating up. Um, uh, how long do we actually have? Just so I'm Katie.
We have some extra time today if you want to do an extra 15 with a performer, or we can do more with Q&A at the end.
Okay. Well, we can work a little longer here. So get back to the beginning here. So to work on these runs, these are tricky. The way I work on stuff like this is I really try to identify the key notes in the arpeggio or run in question. So this one here, the first one. Right? And then when you've got that smooth, wait, what is it? Right? So you want to pick out the main notes and then add the other fingers. Why don't you try that first one? Right, but one thing I'm noticing here now is you've gone back to the removing, only some notes get vibrato.
Yeah.
Can you identify which notes that you need to add vibrato for?
Maybe the first one, because I might have been doing the thing where I was like all tone and no vibrato for the first note.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I hadn't picked up on that, but that's really good. And the one I had picked up on was the G. But I will say that one thing, one rule of thumb I have is that usually if something's going badly on a particular note, it's usually the fault of the one before it. I always find that. So that's a great catch, that you noticed that. And in fact, when you brought attention to the C, that G started behaving itself, and now it was vibrating too. So great. So can you do that again and like really like vibrate throughout that whole arpeggio? Right. No, we're not ready for that yet.
We're not ready for that.
We're not ready. We're building a house here, and right now we're working on the basement level. So now we want to put let's say we want to put some beams up to build our house. So we're gonna do. So you went slowly, right? Now we want to. See if we can do something like that. Pretty. Now, just get it so it's like,
yeah, not like that.
right, it's not da da da. Right. So then, whatever the notes are, but we're going to add da, and then do that a couple times, and then just start playing the extra notes. Yeah, much better. Did you say wow?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just like, I was very surprised with myself. I'm like, oh, is it? Because I keep like scrutinizing over every single individual note and the transition, but then
Yeah,
to focus on the key notes and then just kind of have everything flow in between. It helps a lot.
exactly. You said some really good words there that are very key. And the thing that like scrutinizing versus flow, that's really, really important. And actually has to do with the way our brains work. Um, so when you are scrutinizing, you're actually using your left brain. It's your left brain that's functioning, and it's really looking at the detail and figuring out each note. And what we do when we perform is we move into a flow state. This is science. I mean, I'm like not making this up. And you move, and the things go into the left brain, which is responsible for global movement and flow. And so when playing things like this, like when you played that the first time, you were very much, I could very much hear your brain was in the scrutinizing state. And what we need to do is get the movements and the patterns to move into the flow state. And so this technique of kind of like picking notes and giving yourself like a basement level and then building on that and just adding then the flow piece on top is how you want to go about working on things like this. It's a similar thing to when you learned how to ride a bicycle. Um, when somebody's learning to ride a bike, they fall off, they fall off, they fall off, and then all of a sudden they like, because it's so many different movements, right? You have to coordinate the handlebars, you have to coordinate the pedals, you have to get your balance, and all these things are like pieces that aren't integrated into the whole, and all of a sudden it integrates, and then it moves into that part of the brain. And once you learn to ride a bicycle, you just never forget, right? It just becomes that. Or things like phone numbers or social security numbers that you don't remember each, you don't think about it as each individual digit, you think about it as chunks, right? The first three numbers, then two numbers, then four numbers. That's how you remember your social security number. Phone numbers, right? You remember them in chunks, and this is like your brain when you're learning to play the flute, you're like practicing, this is neuroplasticity. So you're changing your brain. And that, like, you just really illustrated how, like, I could almost hear it transfer to the other part of your brain, which is really cool. So, So of course you're going to want to do that for all of those sections. And don't forget to do the second step. So once you've identified what the main notes are, which is playing them, you know, in pieces, you're going to want to put them into a whole, right? Or let's say the passage is longer, like a whole bar, like the bar before 10 or something. Maybe it's too long to do as one thing. You might want to split it up further and do it in smaller pieces. But as much of that as you can get into go into your brain as chunks and in a flow state, the easier you're going to be able to work through it. I don't think that the way to learning passages like this is by practicing them note by note. You're just never going to get there. So, yeah. Um, Great. I think those were my comments. Um, and yeah, really nice work.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful job, and I really loved getting to hear that, and I can't wait to hear our next performer. So up next, I have Kitty Bays of Omaha, Nebraska, who will play the second movement of the Concerto for Flautino in C major by Vivaldi. Kitty.
Okay, bravo. So first of all, I wanted to also like talk to you about working with a drone. Um, and Obviously, you could do it in a little bit more complex way where you figure out each chord. And if you have the piano score, you can look at that and figure out which chord goes with what. But if you want to be really simple, you can just do the key. So we are in E minor, so you'd want to start this on E. Um, and really working with difference tones. So for me, for tuning, I don't listen to I don't listen to each individual pitch. I listen to the way it interacts with the tuner. And you'll hear that the difference tone will either be part of the major triad or it will not, right? Or the sixth. So you can work with major, minor, thirds, perfect intervals, fourth, fifth, and you can work with sixths in terms of them being part of the major triad. And this can help you because if you're in tune with the tuner, you're going to have a note that complements the rest of the triad, right? Um, so do you have something with you there that will do it? So can you put it on an E and just play the beginning? Yeah. Starting, just thinking very simply of playing in tune with that colleague of yours, the little miniature person inside the tuner. Yeah, that sounded more in tune with yourself. Um, Now, like I said, if you want to take this to the next level with tuning, then you'd want to go in and, you have the first bar is E minor, and then you have A minor, followed by B minor, and back to E. So you could tune those measures individually. And that's going to give you the most true harmony. Um, so are these your ornaments?
Yes.
Yeah. So they're good. They're perhaps too much. The reason I say that is because Vivaldi wrote a lot of his own ornaments. And what I mean is that the first measure is all about E. Right? And then it's second measure is those are all extra ornaments. So you see? So the main note is what the basis of the piece is, the basement, as we were talking about before, with Anna, and the rest are ornaments. So that when you go in the second part, the second time through and add ornaments, you really don't have to do quite as much as that for it to be, just add a little hot sauce to it, right? So you've added like superpower, like hot, hot, hot. And maybe we could use a a little less. I would say the first thing I would suggest with the ornaments is removing the trills. I don't think they advance your case. As I think adding things like kind of filling things in. So, or adding arpeggio. So, for example, stuff like that, you know. But trills, I don't think is gonna add any flavor that's compelling to it. Um, and I wouldn't do something every single bar. Like just don't overdo it. It's enough just to add a little bit. Um, then um, so I'd like to kind of work, so starting at the beginning again, I want to work on that concept of, so the first time through, before you ornament, of really, I just having a very calm, basic basement sound where you're adding ornaments on top of that. So can you just play the main notes so starting in the first measure, that's just E the whole time, and then C, A, D sharp, G, right? So really kind of almost like you're a tuner. Can you do that now? Can you do it? Sorry, Kitty. Can you do it in tempo, in the tempo that you want to play? Good. Okay. Now can you connect them a little more? The first note, I wanna pick on your tongue a little too. So can you play the first note with no tongue? Yeah. So your tongue's getting in the way too. It's very common. See if you can start the note and just have pure sound right from the beginning, then add the tongue. Now add the tongue. Better. Yeah. And this, like, imagine that these gestures are like, you ever seen like a cellist play like the bow, this kind of music, long, 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 right? You can almost imagine that you are two different instrumentalists playing a duet here. So the main notes are the cello, and then the top notes would be like a violin or even a flute if you wanted. But maybe we get away from the flute. Something else, right? So that the you have the continuo part. You're responsible for that bottom. So that's what we're working on right now, is you being the continuo player.
Sorry, did you want the extra notes in the arpeggio or just the bass note again?
Right now, no, just the basic notes, and really having that concept of like that bow. Oh, that's a better feel. Can you now put the tuner back on the E and really, right, so really make sure that you're coming in on right on pitch, so it's not coming in from below. And so this could be, and it's hard through the Zoom, of course, but it could be the Zoom, and it could be that again, like just like Anna, this sounds to me like it's vibrating down off the note. Can you try to play through your nose and allow the sound to come up and vibrate up? Yeah, good. Yeah, better. So now, same concept. So we want to now take that same sound and that same approach and then just add the other notes like those are the ornaments. Good. Let's work just here on the second measure. So if we go, if the main notes are, right? If I'm playing in a way that I'm ornamenting that, I'm going to be, do you hear how I'm trying to flow through the other notes? I'm not getting stuck on any notes that are anything but the main notes. We want to make sure we're not like, because I'm hearing like a little bit da dee da 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 da, right? So da dee da 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 ba. Oh, keep the flow going. Okay, good. I hear one extra note in there, I think, in that 10th. That 10 tuplet, whatever you call it.
I think I'm
Yeah.
adding an A natural.
Okay, yeah. Um, there's already enough notes in there. Let's not add any more. So also, I think it would be good if you can practice this with a metronome. Because some of the bars, like for example, bar two to me feels to be dragging, and then some bars you're kind of pushing through. And so um, I think you'd be surprised if you put a metronome on at how much you're slowing down in the first part of bar two. Um, so what tempo do you think you'd like for this?
Eighth note about here.
Do it again? I think I was a little, yeah, that's about 86, I think. That sound about right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have your, is that a metronome there too?
I can get mine pulled up, yeah.
Okay. I think it'll just be weird if it's going across the screen. And if you have fancy metronome, you could even set it on something that might be helpful would be to put a subdivision on there where the non-main notes are a different sound so that you're not tempted to go da 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 da, right? Da dee 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 dee. Wow. Okay, good. Go ahead. Yeah. That's pretty different, right? That's a lot faster than you were playing it. Now, is that really the tempo you want? Let's play the beginning and just check. It's okay to change it.
It's a little on the fast side, but
It's a
it
little
depends
fast,
on
right?
how much your breast support is dying.
Right, and especially because when you go to put ornaments in there, it's gonna go like it's gonna sound like a fast movement, right? So, what do we think? How do we gonna adjust that then?
Probably closer to 80.
Okay, try that. That's better, right? Good. And then you're going to want to check that, of course, against like what you decide to do for ornaments. Does that make it feel not quite right? So, you know what I mean? And you might want to adjust it down even further depending how that feels for you. Um, good. Now going to the ornaments. Do you want to work on those a little?
Sure.
Okay. So let's try them with the metronome, and I'll try to, you know, why don't you play through it one time and then with the ornaments, and then we can look at them together.
All right. With or without metronome for right now? With?
Say what? I'm sorry.
That's
I
my.
Oh, I couldn't hear you. Okay, so some nice ideas there, and I think you could just take them, just refine them a little bit. Um, there's a couple of them that I don't think are quite stylistically correct. So, um, the first, for example, the second beat where you put something, you added something in there, right? Could that sound more like you just made it up? I mean, the thing about these is they would never be written in, right? They'd just be made up. So, I mean, we don't live in that time, and we're used to having things written out ahead of time, which is fine. I do that too, but you have to make it sound like you made it up, like you're playing jazz. Try the first bar again and make it sound more fanciful. Is that the same? Is that the
No,
same?
I compressed it differently.
Okay.
No, that was not correct.
Turn the metronome off for now. But you get the idea. So that's the tempo we're going to use. One more time, the first bar. Okay. Good. Um, one thing that's important about ornamenting is you have to keep the main notes in the same place. Or you put like an appoggiatura on one of them, but the basic structure has to be in the same place, or it won't work. It's going to sound funny to the ear. Um, so the second beat, can you play the second beat like the regular way and then add an ornament to it? Say play beats 2 and 3 because those are where you're adding the ornaments.
In that measure or the next one?
That one. And now play that with the ornaments that you want. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now the da da da, what the thing you're doing there? No, the last beat of the bar. Um, we have to make sure that putting an ornament on that F sharp, which is fine, doesn't make it now become the main note. Because remember, your main note here is still E, right? We're still riffing on E. So if you want to put an ornament on that F sharp, you still have to make sure that that E comes through. So it's not like, you understand? Because now you've gone to F sharp. So that's not in the tonality that you want. So that needs to be, the emphasis on the F sharp needs to be minimized and the E brought out. And the G is okay to bring out too because that's part of the E minor triad. But the F sharp, even if you want to put an ornament on it, has to be less. Yeah, yeah. It may seem subtle, but it does make a difference. So in the next bar, you want to play that bar? Okay. So this one you could take even a little further if you wanted to in the so you play the first bar, you don't do it, the first beat, you don't do anything, right? And then you go, what if you went, fill it out even more? Just could do something like that. So remember, the notes have to stay in the same place. So this becomes, it's not fast. Yeah. And I actually do this at the end. So you go, instead of, and the reason I don't do that thing that you're doing where you're going from the E to the D sharp is the interesting note here is the D sharp. That's the appoggiatura. So this is dissonance happening here, right? We're waiting for this note to resolve to an E minor chord. The ear wants resolution. So if you put an E before the D sharp, you've resolved it already. It's the tension's gone. So you can, on the downbeat, you've already got the E here. Now, but you're going, that's where the emphasis is. And then you go something, right? Something like that. And then here, you put an A, how did you do that again?
wrong note. My apologies.
Okay, so here's where there's a little stylistic issue because the in Vivaldi's day, you wouldn't have the note wouldn't come before the beat. It would always come on the beat, the grace note. You're putting like a grace note here, an A before the G. So if you're going to do that, it needs to come on the beat. Right? Yeah. But this you have to practice with the metronome because once you're putting ornaments in, you're kind of getting all over the place with the rhythm. So when you go back to practice this on your own, make sure you're doing this with the metronome so you stay within the right, all the notes that are part of the main idea are still in the same place. And yeah, what you did there was really good with that appoggiatura. The appoggiatura is the interesting note. That gets the weight. That A, that's where the dissonance is. So the ear again, the ear is like, oh, that's interesting. Why? I want resolution. But you don't give it to them right away. You can put a little more emphasis like you did on that appoggiatura. When you put it before the beat, it's not as interesting. The ear doesn't hook on it. Okay, so now going on from the so okay, here. That one, I don't think that buys you anything. It almost sounds like it's a theme for some. I swear to God, it's a movie theme from somewhere. Da, 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 da. I don't know. It's a flute piece. What is it? Anyhow, I wouldn't do that one. It's it's so part da da. That's so part of like it's just a pickup. So then get rid of that one. Then after that, dee, go ahead. So here we go.
Pardon?
So you can do that one where you have the appoggiatura again. But you just did it. So maybe you want to pick one. Maybe you don't want to do it the first time and you want to do it the second time. But I wouldn't do it twice.
All right.
Makes sense, right?
Mhm.
Again, here we have something that I wouldn't do twice. It's a good idea, but good ideas, we don't want to keep repeating them or they become boring. So let's decide if you want to do it the first time or the second time. And maybe since you have options here, right? You have in the bar one, two, the third bar you have da 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 da. You do, and then right, it's the same thing, and then you have two things again. So maybe in the third bar you want to do it first but not second, and then the second bar in the next bar you might want to do it second, not first. Kind of change it up, make it kind of spicy. Okay. Then the following bar, of course, you don't really need to do anything to that 10 except take out that extra note that keeps creeping in there. You keep getting a little extra notes in there, so we want to get rid of that. That one's fully ornamented. We don't need to touch that beat. And start from the A sharp. Okay, good. Um, the in that bar with the A sharp, so it's the fourth bar. Um, again, this is not quite stylistically of the era where you go, uh, right? And again, it's pulling you out of tonality there. So you want to go or something, but not, you come up with something a little more um, grounded. No, not a like a flippy little French thing. We want something a little more grounded.
Eh,
Yeah, I
oh,
like
that's so
that.
funny.
That's something like that. Or
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I can't do this on the fly.
yeah, no, it's okay. But I mean, coming up with something that's not a little flip like that. Um, and then dee da da. Uh, yeah. So the ending, I like what you did with that. Remember, with the appoggiaturas, the interest is in the dissonance. So you don't have to resolve that so quickly. And then I do like a little something afterwards, like you did, or whatever you did. You did. I think you went da 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 or something. Yeah. You hold on to that A sharp a little longer because again, that's the interest. Yeah. So even if like you're not resolving it with the metronome, with the beat, you're kind of resolving it a little later. So it's just like, oh, so much tension, right? Good. Are you using, by the way, are you using the lever for that B? That, A sharp, rather?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Now, when you go to the next note for the second stanza, um, really got to check the pitch here. This note was very high compared to your top B. Yeah. Good. Excellent. Um, hey, I think are we, Katie, are we
We
at
are at time, yes. So thank you so much, Kitty. That was wonderful. I loved getting to hear this. And in the background, Garrett and I are wondering, is that the Schubert Ständchen or Schwannengesang? Yeah.
I was gonna say like bonus points to anyone who can say what it is. I should have known that Garrett would know what that is. That's good. Bravo, Garrett.
We're sitting here thinking about it. But I want to say thank you so much to our performers today, and thank you to everyone for tuning in and participating in this masterclass. Huge thank you to you, Stephanie, for all the inspiring coaching today. If you do have questions for Stephanie or any of the performers, please do put them in the chat at this time. But while we're waiting on that, Stephanie, I wanted to ask a couple of broad strokes that you've been talking about today. Is obviously always vibrating, that ringing vibration. So are there specific exercises that you would recommend, getting the tongue out of the way and making sure that vibration is constant?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so many great resources for this. Just doing Moise studies daily, and really like working on, they're very basic, but really, really focusing on that kind of ooiness between the notes, um, and then taking that and trying to incorporate it into pieces. Not necessarily the things that you're having to play. Um, it just like there's a great book, Tone Development Through Interpretation, um, which is fantastic, has like beautiful melodies, and then you can practice this idea of doing moise, not just with notes that are next to each other, but notes like I thought it was like a really, really powerful example of what when Anna played those arpeggios, and she really, really connected them, and then was able to just flow right through them. And she was struggling before because she wasn't really vocalizing throughout the ranges and connecting. So yeah, that's some of the exercises that I do to work on that.
Well, on that note, you're talking about obviously the connection in the notes and kind of that flow state. We've got two sort of things going on here. And you said something very interesting about if something is going badly with a particular note, it's usually the one before it. So in terms of kind of identifying, I hadn't thought about that, but it's being kind of unprepared for the next note, and it's suddenly there and you're not performing it in the way that you had hoped. So is there anything in terms of preparedness, or just catch yourself in those moments and go back and try to retrain that?
Um, yeah, I mean, first is just being aware of that very common occurrence where it isn't the note that you're on that's causing the problem. You usually have to look backwards, and like, I mean, it's like anything in life. If you fall down on the street, well, you didn't just fall. Like that wasn't the problem. The problem was there was a crack that you tripped on. So like identifying what is the source of the fall, what happened right before you fell, um, you know, and I think we forget to look at that in that way. We think it's the fault of the note that you're on, and like it usually isn't. Or like the identifying the role of the tongue in causing problems in our playing for like whole hosts of things, including sound. And people wouldn't really think of the tongue as causing sound problems, but I find it's like the number one culprit in anything that's going wrong with someone's playing. It's like I say 9 times out of 10, it's like, well, it's your tongue's fault. You know?
That's
So
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it, but I think as a wind and anybody who starts on a wind instrument, I think when we start, we just get so used to creating sound through force of our tongue. We kind of get in this habit of overusing the tongue in so many ways. And so we've seen that in other master classes too, and we've just got to take the tongue out of the way of the sound itself.
yeah, we play wind instruments, not tongue instruments, you know? And so it's like, yeah, it's really something. It's not something that I think I I wasn't like thinking this way when I was a student. So I'm hoping that like more and more, younger players can become aware of this earlier on, and they don't have to like reinvent the wheel later. Yeah.
A couple other questions coming in. What are the most important things to pay attention to when playing a piece on the flute?
Say that again. I missed part of that.
Yeah, what are the most important things to pay attention to when playing a piece on the flute? Like musicality, pitch, intonation, all of it.
Wow, that's a big question. Um, well, I mean, I guess one thing that's super important is like why did the composer write this piece? Like, I think I was touching on that with Anna. Like, what is this piece about? Right? Well, it's about birds. So what do birds do? Like, let's think about birds and like how can I be most bird-like? Um, and sometimes it's harder to identify. I mean, the fact that I work at the opera, I, I'm lucky because the story is always there. Like you can always read the synopsis and the libretto and figure out what's going on, and then you can figure out what your role is. And I think like when you're playing a piece of music that doesn't necessarily have an explicit story for you, it's important to kind of invent your own story for it.
Mm.
Um, and what story are you trying to tell through this piece? The composer can have an idea that can be very instructive. I mean, fortunately, when they put titles like Pan and the Birds, well, that's pretty easy. But sometimes, like, you know, Vivaldi Piccolo Concerto, that's not so instructive. So, like, what are you trying to convey through this piece of music? What feelings are you trying to evoke? And how does it make you feel, first of all? Like really kind of looking at how the piece makes you feel and what you want other people to experience. That's your role as an artist,
Mm.
right? Is to allow that to pass through you and to communicate that to others.
Wonderful. A question on how do you make sure your vibrato is vibrating up? Anything in particular, exercises, anything else?
Well, I find generally when I talk to students about opening their nose and allowing the sound to come through their nose, it's really transformative for their sound. Really kind of hard to hear through the Zoom, but I do think Anna's sound really opened up when she started doing that. And I mean, I think if everyone just imagines like, you know, what is the experience of like when you are walking through a beautiful rose garden, like what is your nose doing? What is happening inside? And try to pay attention to like physically what happens in your head. And I mean, you can feel that you're opening up
Mhm.
inside.
That
And
soft
so,
palate is raising, you're kind of creating a
exactly,
space for that resonance.
right, right. But I mean, instead of thinking about raising the soft palate, which is an action, which
Right.
singers talk about, but I mean, I think like raise it, if you think raise the soft palate, you're actually like trying to do something. And I think
Hmm.
just like opening the nose or smelling instead of breathing, you're smelling. You
Hmm.
know, you're smelling the air, you can think about a rose or another smell you really like cookies or whatever, you know, you want to smell. And that can really help with vibrating up. There's a great tool out there that I have been raving about for years, and it's fortunately still available. It's John Wyon's vibrato page. If you Google John Wyon, Wion, vibrato, it will come right up, and it has links that you can click on that are recordings of famous flute players, and it shows you. It's very instructive what they do with their vibrato because you can listen to them play a little snippet. Oh, thank you, Katie.
I found it.
You can listen to them play a little short passage with now their how they sound, and then you can listen to it slowed down and really hear. And it's at the same pitch, but you hear what they're doing with their vibrato, and so you can understand why certain flutists sound like themselves, and it's like almost like the thumbprint or DNA of their sound is in that vibrato.
Wow, that page, I'm gonna bookmark that because that looks very
You got to check that
fascinating
out.
to get into.
It's pretty trippy.
I remember that. I think there was something else that you recommended in the masterclass in 2020 with really, really interesting stuff. So I really appreciate all the
God,
technicalities as well.
I wish I remembered what it was.
I'm sure I have it in my former notes. One other
Oh,
question in terms of practicing. Okay, so this is something that can often, some of us feel like we need to be in the practice room for 4 hours a day or just X amount of time, check it off, and we're done. Do you have certain best practices that you feel for practicing in terms of practicing the right amount, the right things, anything like that? How often, how long?
that's a complicated question, and it's going to vary depending on what stage in your career you are.
Mm.
So a few things is like, I think it's Jeffrey Gilbert that always said you should never have to practice more than 3 hours a day. And I think that what he meant by that is that like you should be practicing in a way that is planned and productive so that you can accomplish what you need to in those 3 hours. So it's important to make sure that you're practicing in a smart way. Um, and working on things like what we were talking about today about building foundations in your pieces, finding the main notes, kind of like working on things like that. Um, and, you know, not killing yourself with, or also not watching TV while you're practicing. I mean, I know it's tempting, but you're not going to really be doing learning. So while you can say to your, to your friends, say, "Hey, I practice 7 hours," if it's not like real focused attention, the learning is not going to be there as much. And I think so that's like I will say like I've never really on a regular basis practiced much more than 3 hours. The one time I would say two exceptions was when I was preparing for the Chicago Symphony audition and the Met audition,
Okay.
and at that time I was putting in about 5 hours a day, but it was for a short amount of time. I would not recommend that for like that's every day I'm going to try to do that. It was like, I have this one goal, it's a focused goal, and then I really structured my practice time very carefully. I was like every night I would plan my next day's practice. So I would sit down with a planner and go through like what I needed to work on. Like I recorded myself all the time. So I was like, I've identified, okay, this part of the piece I feel really good about, but maybe the second part, the part B, I'm like not feeling good. So I'm going to ignore the first part and work on the second part. And I'm going to spend 20 minutes on that. And after that, I'm going to work on, this part of this other piece. And then I'm going to have a 10-minute break. And then I'm going to come back. So it was really structured. I planned in my breaks. I planned in my lunch. I like took care of myself in that way. And I did really well in those auditions. Um, uh, but so then there's like times when you're really not preparing for anything, but you want to maintain. And I think, giving yourself, a much more reasonable small goal
Mhm.
of, you know, even if it's just like, I'm going to practice for 15 minutes every single day. And you'll find once you get past that 15 minutes, you're like, oh, I'm having fun. Maybe I'll put in a little more time. But like allowing yourself to reach your goals every day and feel good about what you're doing is really important too.
Mm. There's so much more to it, I think, than it feels like when I was growing up taking music lessons and everything. It was just, okay, here's what you practice. And, it was kind of the teachers were just do X. And it really wasn't thinking about how you're doing X or what you're accomplishing in the same way. And I think that I appreciate that shift that is taken me time to wrap my head around, to really come at it with a plan. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? This very, I mean, it's easy to say mindful practicing without actually thinking about what is that? Why am I working on this? What sound do I want to achieve? So I really appreciate that you and other teachers are really making people aware of good practicing rather than just running through things for a period of time.
Yeah. And so like yeah, for example, like when I auditioned for the Met, I did not I so it was for piccolo and third flute. Now there were maybe like five excerpts of on flute on there. And I had been a flute player for a really long time at that point. Well, I been doing okay in auditions, and I felt like, well, this is a piccolo job, so I'm putting my flute away and I'm gonna trust myself. That was a conscious choice. It wasn't like, oops, I forgot to practice flute. I made that choice, and I said to myself, like, the piccolo is what needs my attention now. And so it's like that's smart practicing, right? Uh, and then I would occasionally get out my flute and play the things, but I wouldn't spend time on it because I just decided to trust that, and it really did pay off. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, so looking at what you have to practice and just don't practice the stuff you do well. You
Mm.
don't need to run through that, you know. Malcolm Gladwell says 10,000 hours to become an expert at everything. But if you put like 10,000 hours into like all the things you're doing well over and over and over and over again, then you don't have any energy left for those things that you need to work on.
Right. So now one final question on terms of taking this practice. So often what happens with practice, at least I know with me and some other people, we get into this very that scrutinizing mindset, you know, we're really like kind of judging ourselves. So now how do you take it from that scrutinizing into like flow? Is there anything that you particularly recommend for getting into that flow state, especially when you're getting more towards performing and you want to make sure that it's really a cohesive emotional performance and we're not too much in our left brain?
That takes practice, and it actually, for me, it's a decision that I make. It's a really interesting thing. I mean, it's very easy to get stuck on things, you know? Anybody that's ever auditioned for anything or played in a recital and like screwed something up, all of a sudden you're like, wait, what happened? And then you're like, and then it snowballs. And that's your brain getting stuck. And so it's practicing doing that. It's actually physically practicing and actually paying attention to what it feels like. I mean, you saw Anna, she was like, whoa. So we're noticing those things and like learning from them, like, oh my God, that felt different. What was that? What happened there? I just did something I didn't know that I could do. So when you have those experiences, like building on them like that, it's really important. And so I just like, for me, I pick point A and I pick point B, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go from point A to point B. It's like being on a slide. Whoop! And you just do it, right? You that like there's certain pieces that are never going to be like that flute pen, whatever the one the pane that she was playing. That's just never going to be improved by practicing note by note.
Mm.
It's just never going to get there. So that's like the kind of thing where you have to do that.
To get into really the flow. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Stephanie. I love getting to sit in on these and host these. It's just fascinating for me. I'm going to check out the vibrato page. But I just want to say thank you again to our performers. Thank you to Stephanie for your time. We really appreciate it and hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of their day.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Katie, and great job to Anna and Kitty.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.